Welcome to episode 2 of the Uncommon Woman video series, stories of women who live empowered lives despite the risk, the pain, and the odds. Steph Gold is an author who lost her father after a 9-year battle with terminal illness. After experiencing the hardest time in her life, she knew she finally had to write the book that had been on her heart for years. Be inspired. Thank you so much for showing up for the Uncommon Women video series. I am here this afternoon with a special guest, Steph Gold, all the way from St. Louis. Hello, sister.
Hello.
How are you? I'm so glad that you're here. This is such an honor to be sharing the space and time with you. You know, it's funny because I met you March, first weekend in March in California at Lori Harder's Bliss Project. And you were so incredible that you gave everybody a copy of your book. And I was like, oh, perfect reading material for the plane. And it's a perfect size. I had two layovers, and it was the perfect book to read. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And as you can see, I've sticky noted it, and I've got highlights all through it because it was really a great read. And I felt like it was so raw and vulnerable and just like straight shooting, which is what you are. This is why I love you. Surprise. Anyway, so thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
I am beyond honored to be speaking with you right now and be a part of this movement. I just adore everything that you're doing, and it's so life-changing for people. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you for showing up. So one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you, of course, was that while I was reading your book, I had so many, oh man, I just love that. You know, I just love what she's saying. I love her raw and real voice. And you really do speak as you. You know, I had a nice conversation with you at Bliss, and it was so fun to read your book after. I feel like I'm having a conversation with Steph. You know, this is so good. So can you talk to me a little bit? Maybe we'll kind of go back and let's just start with why you felt that you needed to put a book out, because there are so many women out there who want to write a book. And I know you and I actually had this conversation because I have a book in the works right now for the Uncommon Women. And we were talking about the fact that there are so many people that say, I have a book. It's here. All I need to do, right?
Yeah.
So, but there are blockages around taking the book from here and putting it onto paper, or, you know, making it available to the audience. So can we just talk for a minute about, you know, what it was that kind of triggered you to, number one, want to write a book, and then to take you into that next step?
Absolutely. So really, I'd say when I first really was kind of living and experiencing my passion, I was a senior in high school, and I was president of student council, and I was speaking in front of the school every day. And I loved it. I loved speaking. I loved, I just loved that whole experience. And so I really knew when I was looking at colleges that was kind of communication, psychology, and then public speaking was always going to be a part of kind of where I wanted to go. And so I went to TCU, and I chose my major was communication with an emphasis in human relation. Most of instead of exams, I was giving mostly speeches. And I actually started attending a ton of motivational speaking. Anytime they'd had an opportunity on campus, I would go. And then I took a position on campus where I would actually travel and hire the speakers for the school.
Perfect.
So it was brilliant because I was actually getting a chance to kind of interview each of these speakers.
Right.
And I would ask them, okay, how did you get to where you are? How did you do this? You know, and every single one of them said, you have to write a book. And so that was when I first started getting the book tap. It was like, okay, your first step, if you want to speak, is you need to write a book.
Right.
And I remember thinking, you know, I hadn't learned to read until I was in 3rd grade. I was dyslexic. And so I would memorize books, and the teacher realized I was flipping the pages at the wrong time.
So, oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
Right?
Only kids do that, right?
Exactly.
That's so funny.
So I thought, how am I going to write a book when I've never even really read a book?
Read one.
How am I gonna, and what's this book going to be about? And I remember thinking at, 18, 19, 20, I don't have a story. Like, I have to tell somebody else's story. I don't have a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was right around that time. So my freshman year, that was when my dad actually became ill. And so I remember thinking, okay, who am I going to write this book about? It has to be an awesome story. It has to be. And so that was when really I decided to write about my grandmother, and who was just this powerhouse, amazing woman, so happy. And so I decided, okay, it's going to be about her. And then from there, it was like the million roadblocks we talk about, all the incredible excuses that come into our lives. But I never stopped getting the tap. It was like, and it gets louder, you know, with all of these kind of divinely guided dreams and visions that we have. It's like the tap just gets louder. So it doesn't leave you, right? So it became all of a sudden, fast forward 5 years, and it's like the grocer at the store, at the grocery store, the bagger is like, you should write a book. And like, I'm passing people on the street that don't know me from Adam, and they're like, yeah, I think you should write a book.
That's
and
funny.
You're just like, oh my gosh, how many ways can you give me the same message? Like that tap just gets so loud.
Right.
So that was really kind of how it went from, okay, this quiet whisper to this loud, like, okay, I'm clearly supposed to do this thing. And now how do I make it happen?
That's incredible, Steph. And I love the fact that you mentioned that when you decide or when you know, then it starts showing up everywhere, right? It's like when Tony Robbins says, I want you to look in the room for everything that's red, right? And then all of a sudden, all you start seeing is red, and you see red everywhere you go, law of attraction. So you were really pulling it in, and that was the processing time. And I love that. But I know that you had roadblocks, Steph, and that's one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about today, because trauma, tragedy, death, life, shit happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can choose to allow it to paralyze us.
Absolutely.
Or we can choose to use it as our fuel for our fire. And I know that it's not that easy. I mean, it's not like, oh, I choose, red or blue. No, it's not like that. And it's a process. But in that process, we decide. We make a decision through the process. And you have a beautiful process and an incredible story. So can you share a little bit of some of the things that started showing up in your life, just to give the women here an idea of what shows up and what we're capable of? Because I know that there's somebody out there who's probably really struggling right now, thinking, I've got this big thing that I need to do, and I just can't do it. I'm having a hard time breathing.
Right. Absolutely. So, it wasn't, this process was so long for me. My dad was sick for 9 years. And I remember I was 18 when he was diagnosed. And I remember I was in school. I already had this dream, right? And I just remember thinking, at first I was going to come home. And he said, if you come home, I'll feel like you've given up on me. You need to stay there. So for 4 years, I would travel back and forth. And the stress was crazy. Like, it was the constant travel, the constant, just all of it was, so adrenal fatigue, extreme weight gain, like you name it, right? And so it's like, it's never just like the hard thing. There's always like a million other things.
Right. Exactly. It's the hard thing and then all the symptoms, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so I remember thinking, just get to graduation. You're going to come home. You're going to take care of everything. Right. Yeah. And in the meantime, I had kind of always been, my brother's 4 years younger than me, and he's very quiet. And I took responsibility for him at a very young age. So we're both adopted, and I had been the one who had asked for him, who had prayed every night, who asked Santa for him, the whole bit. So when he arrived, like, I was very confident that he was my responsibility. And it took me until my mid-20s to really realize that he wasn't. So there was this huge weight of feeling responsible for my brother. Meanwhile, my brother is coping with drugs. He's just trying to numb out. And so it was like, okay, get home. You're going to cure your dad of cancer with a ton of vegetables, and you're going to
That's the answer.
Off drugs. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember graduating and just feeling like it was very clear. Like I was going to cure everybody in that summer. And that didn't happen. My dad didn't want to eat the healthy food. My dad was in crazy pain, and everybody deals with it differently. But I really realized I have no control over anyone but myself. And I really realized that like I was that I needed to start with me, right? Like I needed to be the model, and I couldn't take responsibility for what anybody else was doing. And so then really kind of through that, so then I ended up coming home and I ended up caring for my dad. So my mom was the main caregiver. But then I was there to support my mom every time. I mean, it was 9 years of her caregiving.
Right.
And he really needed 24-hour attention. And so I just remember being so deep in this. He would ask me in his moments of like clarity and his moments of calm, what are you doing? Why haven't you written your book? Why aren't you? And I remember saying and like genuinely believing like, Dad, I'm caring for you. I can't possibly do that right now.
Right.
And it's like, you can't see it until you can see it. And then once you see it, you can't unsee it. So it's like painful now for me to look back and realize that I so deeply believed my dad's illness was keeping me from doing my thing, from writing this book, from impacting these lives. Like it's painful because the hard part isn't like answering the calling, like, right. Yeah. But yeah, I genuinely believed like there was going to be no time for me to do this thing.
And I think that's a really common, sorry to interrupt, but I think that's a really common belief system, right? That I don't know if it's just, I don't want to say just for women, but I certainly know a lot of women who get into the caregiving role, and it will not, I don't want to use the word excuse, because I think truly at the time you're feeling like that's what you should be doing, right? So it's like, I'm caregiving. But often what we don't do is we don't listen to the people around us saying, you don't need to give me all of this care. There's all of these other people around that are loving me too. You go and continue to do the thing that you're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
Right. And then we get into that, I guess, a rhythm almost, right? It's like a rhythm where I'm comfortable where I am. And that way I don't have to maybe do the work of the hard thing that's waiting for me. Like,
absolutely. I look back and I'm like, it was so much easier for me in the moment to say I'm caring for my dad and it was like a reason no one was going to argue with. So when people would ask me, Steph, where's your book? I was like, my dad's sick. I'm caring for my dad.
Yeah, are you crazy? I have right.
And then people be like, oh, that makes so much sense. Absolutely. How should I? Like it was never, it was like and I just continued to get like validation that was like the perfect reason I wasn't writing this book. And again, it's like I look back and I think how much more energy could I have come into really helping him and being present when I really was, if I was doing this amazing passion thing I love on the side too. So yeah, it's so interesting how we can really convince ourselves that we have the best reason in the world why we aren't doing this thing.
Right. I was just having a conversation with Melanie Layer, and it was another interview, another woman who's part of this series. She and I were talking about the fact that we so often will take care of others before we take care of ourselves. And I heard this incredible quote by David Wood. I think you know who he is. And he says, save yourself before you save the world. And I remember him saying that just recently at an event. And I was just like completely like, you know how you hear a quote, I've probably heard that quote 1,000 times. I've probably seen it on a million different Facebook memes, but he said it one day recently. And I just was like, save yourself before you save the world. And it just made complete sense. There was total clarity. I mean, we can't fool ourselves. We can't fool ourselves by thinking that putting all of the attention on other people and making sure that other people are okay and healthy and happy and safe or nurtured. If we don't take any of that energy and honestly save ourselves first, we're just, we're trying to fool the universe and it's not working. And then when there's nobody else to take care of, then we turn in and we go, oh my gosh, I'm a complete mess. And I thought that was such a wise quote, because you can apply it to anything. You can apply it to relationships. You can, apply it to finances. Make sure that you're okay before you start trying to save the world and, building orphanages. Like, can you pay your mortgage? Right. And then, so it's kind of the same thing, but we get into this mentality of it's honorable to just only serve. but to not serve ourselves.
Well, and it's so interesting. I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and the conversation was around that's exact concept. And they said, when you think about, you know, how men respond when they're hungry, what do? They go eat. What do women do? We go and we cook food for everybody else. We make sure everybody else is,
and
then
eat last.
Yeah, and then we eat the leftover, you know, grilled cheese crust. Like,
right. Yeah. Right.
So I just thought that was so interesting. It's like, yes, we have to put our oxygen mask on before we can put it on for everybody else.
Right.
We have to.
And it's funny, speaking of that, I remember I used to get on the plane and read that little sign, and I was like, that seems so selfish. That makes no sense to me, right? When I was younger. And then in comes 2012 when my life fell apart, and I started actually studying and listening to podcasts and reading and really diving into personal development. And I would look up there and go, and that's so funny that you said that, because now I get that, but I didn't get it before. And it's because I was in a place of constantly giving, which is why I was, you know, sucking my life dry. But anyway, going back to you, so same thing, right? Like you were giving, and you weren't nurturing that thing that was so important to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, so then, you know, really, I finally decided, like, okay, I'm done with these excuses. I called a publisher that I've been kind of like, okay, I think this is who I want to go with. And I said, okay, I'm ready to sign on. I'm ready to do this. And I went out to Arizona, where I was going to get my inspiration and write, and I was going to write for a big block of time. And I was out there I had planned to be out there for a month. And I was out there for 3 days, and I got the call. You need to come home. This is the end. And now there had been an end. You know, my dad lived multiple lives.
Many times.
We had multiple scares. There was a year where he was in the hospital for 10 months, and we thought it was any day, you know, and that had been 3 years ago. So like, you know, I don't know. I think people think when someone's sick for a long time that you somehow prepare yourself, or you're like somehow ready. And it's like, no, it can almost become like they're invincible because they've lived with this illness for so long, or it's all you've known. And so you just start to kind of think it's always going to be that way. They're always going to be here.
Interesting.
And so I got the call, and I remember saying, are you sure, Mom? Like, you don't want to go check first and then make sure, like, because it was just like, are you kidding? Like, it's not
again, I'm getting
right. And so I went home. I had the hardest 10 days of my life. And, you know, it was really the ugly side of losing somebody. I've seen a beautiful side of losing somebody. My grandma passed in the most beautiful, it like restored my faith in God, spiritual way. But that was not what I was witnessing with my dad. And, so it was really, really emotionally hard. And I think that we never wanted to admit he was that sick. So we just didn't have those conversations that you think you're going to have with someone at the end. And then it was like in an instant, my greatest excuse, my greatest reason, my everything was just ripped for me. And in that moment, I remember thinking, wow, I'm going to have to call my publisher back. There's no way I can write this book right now.
Right.
This book is about living a happy life. This book is about, you know, there's no way I can write this. And I made that phone call. I'm not ready. I can't do it, you know? And then I started to get these letters about how my dad had touched people's lives. And we start to get these, you know, and I thought, if I do not write this book, it will become a completely different book. Like, if I do not write the book about my grandmother, because we evolve in our life and we continue to learn and we continue to, so like these people that spend 5-6 years writing their book, I'm like, I'm sure they get their manuscript back from their editor 2 years later. And they're like, I was writing a completely different book.
Right. Yeah. I don't want this. Yeah.
Right.
I've changed.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And so, so I was like, if I don't do this now, like it is now or never.
Right.
And so I called back and I made the commitment, and it didn't get easier from there.
And they were like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Yeah. Like, who is this girl?
They're like, well, there she is again. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's awesome. I love it. Yeah.
You know, and it's like, again, now I'm not on the yellow brick road, right? Like now this isn't the golden path. Like I've answered the call and there's a bunch of stuff that's about to come up next. It's going to be easy outs for me to get out of this. Right. And so it was like, my computer, I talk about how my computer crashed, and it was like, I had days of
your editor. I'm sorry. I canceled. Or the publisher.
Yeah. I'm like, what am I going to do? So there were still a million things that came up that could have been an awesome opportunity to say, I'm out. Nope.
Right.
But it wasn't God. It wasn't the universe saying, don't do it. It was just saying, like, how badly do you want it?
Absolutely.
How badly do you want to impact these people? How hard are you going to, push to make this happen?
Right. So, I love hearing these kinds of stories, because I know how difficult it must have been to, like, pen to paper or whatever you were doing, to get that book out. And so where did you pull your power from? Like, where did that real raw energy where you would sit down and dedicate the time, where were you pulling it from? Because I think that people who are listening and watching are probably thinking, yeah, well, she must have some really incredible source, so where did you go for that energy and that power to sit down on those darkest days and say, I still have to write my book because it has to get written now before it turns into a different book?
Right. It's so interesting because I tried to pull my power from a million different places. And initially I tried to pull my power from my mom. Like, it was like, so I was like trying to lean on my mom. Mom, can you help? I'm going to write this chapter. Can you read it, after and let me know what you think? I was thinking, there's no way I can do this on my own. So I need somebody else right here to help push me. And my mom just pieced out. Like, she needed for herself, she'd been a caregiver for 9 years. Right. She needed to travel. So she started going out on yachts and hanging out with my uncles and was in the Bahamas. And I was so mad. I mean,
I have a book to write.
I'm like, where are you? Seriously, where are you?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, good. Yeah, mom just travels. My brother he interprets, he goes in, right? So he's not a hugger in events like this. He's not a communicator. So he's like hibernating, processing. My mom's in the Bahamas. My dad's just died. And I'm there like, oh, great. I guess I'm just supposed to do this big, scary
write this book
by myself, right? And so I remember feeling like, okay, well, you're just going to have, I guess I'm just going to have to do this on my own. Like, I'm just
like, you're all angry at the world, right?
Right. And one thing that was super crazy helpful was deadlines and, like, knowing, okay, everything's going to happen in between. So, like, my computer's going to crash. Yes.
It's not a sign that you're not supposed to write the book.
Exactly. So it was like, okay, when I schedule time, something's going to happen. Like, my dog's going to break his leg and all of a sudden it's going to take me away from, right? That scheduled 3 hours I put. So I always knew that, like, okay, I'm going to have a deadline and something's going to happen and I'm going to have to push through it. Or I get to just decide, nope, this isn't for me. I'm going to go get a 9 to 5. Like, because it would have been much easier to say, nope, I'm not going to do this thing. Maybe not. I think it would have tortured me for the rest of my life.
Well, it would have been easy for 5 minutes and then you would have hated it. Yeah.
Right. And so, so I think it was like that. How badly do I want this? How badly do I want this? Who is this for? And for me, it was like, I don't want the woman, the girl, the individual that is sitting there spinning their wheels, believing so deeply that they are stuck for external reasons. I was like, they are my why.
Right.
Because I had wanted so badly, and I firmly believe, like, I needed to go through this to be able to help others and to be able to catch it. I see it in my clients so quickly now.
Right.
Nope, not a reason. Nope, not a reason. Right. And I needed to go through that to see it. But at the time, it's like, gosh, I wish it could have been easier. I wish somebody would have been there. I wish I could have.
Right. Yeah. And you know, it's one of the things about the Uncommon Woman that's so important is that the community, right? And for somebody to be there, and you know, nobody can write your book for you. I mean, it's your book. You need to write your book. You know, if somebody needs to take a trip to Bali because they've always wanted to go to Bali for a yoga retreat, they have to take those steps to do that. But to have the community around you, or to have the support to say, it's okay. It's okay to be sad and still write. It's okay to be sad and grieving and still go to Bali, or it's okay to not be sure, but to do it anyway, because the other option is to stay where you are. And I think that's such an epidemic, you know, that so many people are like, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. Well, that's not the answer. Do something. Choose. Oh, it doesn't work. Choose again. You've heard this before. Choose again, right? Choose again. Keep choosing until the choice feels right.
Absolutely. And I think the other part of that is to have a supportive community that's going to be like, girl, go. Because guess what? Everyone else in your life is going to tell you don't go.
Right.
They're going to try and, like, everyone that loves you, they want to keep you safe. They want to, and like going to Bali for yoga retreat sounds really scary by yourself.
Right. Like, where are you going to mean going by yourself?
Yeah. There's a bunch of things that could go wrong. You probably don't have the money. You probably don't have this, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so, yeah, they're all going to be saying, you know, the husband, the friend, the whatever, the neighbor, it's like, oh, I don't know, maybe wait, maybe save up. Maybe if you save up, you know, like, and this group is going to say, no, you can do it now. And now's the only time. And
because you only have now. Right.
Yeah.
So in your book, there was, by the way, how do you mention the name of the book? I know you have 2 books, but the one that I read is Now Is Your Time. I love it. No bullshit guide for dreamers and doers. Okay. Like right away, I was like, I'm sold. But there's a quote in here. There's a quote by Lao Tzu that I want to share, because I think it's really important. And then you actually have something you say about, kind of in conjunction with that after. You said, if you want to awaken all of humanity, then awaken all of yourself. If you want to eliminate the suffering in the world, then eliminate all that is dark and negative in yourself. Truly, the greatest gift you have to give is that of your own self-transformation.
Absolutely.
I mean, that says it all, right? Because just like we were saying earlier, you have to save yourself first. And, you know, I know that people, you know, lose parents and spouses and children and careers and financial stability. We lose everything. And that's the darkness that we all experience. But I always say, you know, the candle shines brightest in the darkest room. So when we're in our darkness, we can choose to do the work and transform and to shine brightly despite the darkness. And other people are going to want to be around us, and they're going to want to know what we're doing. They're going to be like, I want what she's having. Kind of like when Harry met Sally, you know, she's like the orgasm scene, and that old lady was like, I want what she's having. Everybody wants what the person who's happy or who's feeling good wants. Everybody wants that, wants to be around them, wants to know what they're doing, wants to share in their process, right?
Absolutely.
And then you said, and I love this, when you give to someone, you get a shot of happiness. The person you did the nice thing for also gets a shot of oxytocin, and anyone else who witnesses the act does as well. So, you know, just right here with you sharing about the fact that even though you were in this dark place, that you stepped forward. And I'm sure that while you were writing, it made you happy.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And so then that happiness is contagious, right?
Right.
Because then I'm not, and it's little stuff. It's like, think about all the people that we encounter in our daily lives, the guy in the elevator, the woman in the Starbucks line, we encounter so many people. And when we are happy,
right,
it's absolutely contagious. And how do we respond to situations when we're in that place? Right? Not only am I friendlier, but I'm way more likely to notice if someone drops something and pick it up for them, or if, you know, like you're just in this different space.
Yes. Right. And I'm sure people said to you, oh my God, how did you write that book in that hard time? Because they're asking you that because they need the information. They need the inspiration. They need the motivation. They need somebody to say, well, I wrote it because it's the thing that I had truly wanted to do. And
Right.
in order for me to get my happy on in that dark time, it was actually the answer.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because we make it so hard. I was writing a book for like 9 years.
Right.
But when I actually was writing a book, it
Mm-hmm.
took me 60 days.
Right.
And that's not to be like, oh, me. It's like we make it so much harder than it's actually going to be.
Mm-hmm.
We make it so much harder. And so, yeah, I had to make that decision. Like, do I want to be the person who's always writing a book? Or do I want to be the person who wrote a book?
Right.
It's like, do I want to be the person who's building a website? Or do I want to be the person who is changing lives?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like, we don't get to determine how long we're here.
Right.
And so the one thing that like was really, and I, you know, I hope that it doesn't take most people losing somebody or someone getting sick or to do their thing. But it's like sitting in the pew and listening as people talk about you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want them to say?
Right.
What do you want them to say? Like, are they going to say, gosh, she was so close to changing lives, but that book, you know, that was on her computer, right? Like, or was it
Right.
live? And like, I'm going to tell you, I still am terrified giving my book because I'm like, I know there's grammatical errors. I know that it's not perfect because that was never the point.
Right.
Right. I was like, this
Get
will
out
not
there.
be perfect. It needs to be live.
Right.
It's not changing lives on my computer. I could stare at this thing. I could still send that to a team of editors and they'd change it up. What do editors do? They edit, right? Like that's their job. They're not going to say, nope, it's perfect.
Right.
So how many times could you submit to an editor? I mean, endlessly. They will always have some
Or they'll
correction.
find something wrong with it. Or they'll, you know, you shouldn't do this or you should do that.
But what is your goal? Right? Like that was all ego talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's all ego. That's not my soul saying, let's serve. My soul doesn't give a damn if it says the twice.
Right. Like, no, stop. It's so funny that you say that because, you know, just launching this video series, I had a complete meltdown the day of the launch, which was Tuesday. And I just thought to myself, I can't do this. It's not perfect. And I actually sent them a message to the woman who does my videography. And I said, it's not perfect. Like, who says that? Right. But I was so caught up in ego. You know, I was thinking my branding color, you know, just all those things that you think. And then I actually woke up and I thought, if I don't get that video out there, then people who are dealing with anxiety and are on the ledge are not going to hear that message tonight. And I stepped back and I thought, perfection is not what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. Making a difference and just putting it out there, my purpose is what I'm looking for. And I put it out there, there was, you know, a response, just like you got a response for your book. And then you think, why have I waited? What was my problem?
Right.
So launching before we're quote unquote ready, which you're never going to be ready if you think ready equals perfect. So just launch, you know.
And I mean, I got goosebumps when you said that because it's so true. It's like, you know, when we get these ideas or these messages and we can get so in our head, like someone else has already said it, I shouldn't say it, or someone else has already done it, or they did it better, or whatever. It's like, no, you don't know. What if you had waited? Like, you don't know who that touched, who needed to hear that message right then and there. Mm-hmm. And it's like, sometimes we want to take responsibility for these thoughts that are coming to us. And the reality of it is that we're just the channel. Right. Like, it's being divinely guided. And so we are just the channel. So if we say, no, I don't trust you, God. I don't trust you, universe. Like, I'm not ready. Mm-hmm. Right? Who are we actually blocking? And so the one thing I constantly remind myself over, I'm like, it's not for everyone. It's for the one. Right. It's not for everyone. It's for the one. Who is the one person? And so sometimes I say that when I put out a Facebook Live or I make a video, I'm like, I don't know who this is for. I have no idea why I've been called to talk about this. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, I'm sure there's one of you. Right. Yeah. And then you hear from that one. Always. Oh my gosh. Always. Always. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you wrote this. Or, you know, I was having the worst day, or I needed to hear this. Like, you get those, and then you go, see, so that's who I was here for. And, you know, I said yesterday, I did a Facebook Live yesterday, and I was like, shame on you if you have a powerful message that you know is your gift to serve out and you're not doing it, because that means that there's somebody who's suffering that you're not helping. And
when we step out of ego and our own, you know, sadness and our own, oh, you know, this person's gone. I know it's hard. I've lost people too. This person is gone. Now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Because that we get all caught up in that. Well, what about everybody else? You know, what's everybody else going to do? Right? There are other people impacted as well. But, you know, maybe this, instead of what are you going to do? How about, you know, this is what I'm going to do in order to kind of redeem that pain, to make this all worthwhile, because I can't bring your father back. I can't bring my grandparents back. But what I can do is I can honor them by saying, I'm going to show up and do this thing for you in honor of you, because you would tell me to do this if you had a voice here.
Absolutely. And allow yourself to feel their strength, because, and I have to be honest, before losing, I mean, like if I would be saying very different things 5 years ago. Like I had completely lost my faith. And now it's so obvious to me. Like if you can allow it to show up, and if you can allow, like, Dad, I need your support. I'm going to need a little support here. A little extra push. Like I swear to you, if you can just use that strength,
pull it in from other places.
I'm telling you, like it makes all the difference. And the reminder of, okay, like I'm not doing this alone. And so, yeah, asking for the support, like I'm going to do this and this isn't going to be easy, but just a little support.
Right. And when we ask, we get, we truly do. If we're asking the right people, and if we're asking the right, you know, source, it's one that's truly there for us, we will get. It might not always look like what we think it's going to look like. You know, it might not be like our pen just magically starts to write and we get to sit back and have a coffee, you know, like, can you write this book for me? No, but it's going to come in the form that it needs to come in, whether it's, you know, energy or enlightenment or, oh my gosh, that whole thing just came to me, or a story shows up or something that nudges you to move forward. That's where it shows up.
Absolutely.
You know, and we have to be open to it, but we also have to have faith that we just have to have faith that we can. And it's hard when we're, you know, kind of the whole point of this Facebook Live is that there are going to be traumas and tragedies, and there are going to be crises, and there are going to be unexpected junk that will, you know, come down the pipes to us.
Absolutely.
But we can decide what we're going to do with that information, right?
Absolutely.
And so how has getting your book out there, or getting your books out there, helped you as a coach and helped you in your work?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, it honestly transformed everything. And I think the biggest part of that was just energetically, I arrived. I showed up. I took off the mask of, here I am as this perfect coach that can help celebrate. And it was like, no, here I am as this human who's been through a lot of shit that was not fun, that was very hard, that was terrifying. And like, here I am showing up, and I can help you with yours, right? Here I am to support you. And so I think even more than, you know, book sales or, you know, people finding me through my book, it was way more about just me owning who I really was, owning all of the ugly things that people tell us never to post or tell people about, you know? Yeah. I remember my mom reading my book and going, I don't know if you should say that. Ooh, and I don't know if you should say that. Ooh, and I don't know if you should say that. And I was like, right. Yeah, this isn't a book for the country club. And I'm going to have the word bullshit on it. My mom was like, I really don't think you should have that word on the cover. I was like, right, but it's totally not for you. It's for like these other people. And
right. You're not my target audience, Mom.
It's like, it's going on the cover.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
You can refer you write it for your friend.
But, you know, it's incredible that you did that. And, you know, I just love that you're inspiring so many people. And I love that, you know, you're just taking, like, we all got your book at the event, which was so incredible because it just says so much about your abundant attitude. And like, here, I just want people to have this. And like you said, the right person is going to pick that book up and read it. And I picked it up and read it. And I remember thinking, man, I need to really stay connected to my parents more as they get old. You know, I had a mother who had breast cancer. I was not present, kind of like you. for that time, but at least you got to go back and forth. I didn't get to do that because I was so far. And I just think to myself, I need to make sure that I take all of the opportunities that I get to be around my parents and to be around the people that I love and to really follow my dreams and to follow the pull, because you don't know. You don't know. There's no breast cancer in our family. Boom, it showed up in my mom. We don't know, right? When our call is there, it's like, hello,
Right. We have no
we're
idea.
Circling,
Absolutely.
and so, yeah. And so I think it's really important. And so your message, like it impacted me. And so that's why I wanted to have you on today, because I wanted to honor you and to thank you for the incredible work that you do in the world and your positive, incredible, energetic light that you put out there every day. It's so fun. And you're such a great presence.
Well, thank you so much. I'm beyond honored. And I'm just so grateful to connect with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being part of the Uncommon Woman Project. It means so much. And I'm sure that there is a woman who needed to hear this today. So, save a life, save a soul. That's what this whole thing is about. So thank you so much, Steph, for being here. Much love to you, sister. One more time. Her book is called Now Is Your Time, a No Bullshit Guide for Dreamers and Doers. What's your other book?
Oh, Keep Your Legs Crossed. Okay. And other advice my grandmother gave me.
I think that's next on my list. I love that. That's great. I mean, who doesn't want to read that? Grandma.
She was
awesome. Right. That's hilarious. Okay, thank you so much, sister.
Thank you.
Take care. Love. Bye.
Thank you so much for spending this sacred time with us and honoring the incredible women who have stepped forward with courage and confidence to share their stories with you and with the world. If you loved this episode, we would really appreciate it if you would share it with somebody that needs this message today. Also, please leave a comment. Let us know how the story has impacted your life or resonated with your soul. You can connect with us at theuncommonwoman.com, on Facebook at www.facebook.com/theuncommonwoman/ or on Instagram at theuncommonwoman. Again, my name is Marlo Ellis, Freedom Coach for Women and founder of The Uncommon Woman. And I want to thank you so much for being with us today. And until next time, take care.